A group of people are watching a movie with bated breath, while a boy on the screen gives a sinister smile. Monsters flying out of the walled bunker begin to wreak havoc in the theater, and this is just the beginning of a series of bizarre disasters in the small town of Derry. Welcome to the latest release in 2025, It Chapter 2. A boy named Marty sits alone in the back row of the theater, watching a wildly popular stage play on a giant screen. Suddenly, a staff member approaches. Marty takes off running. He's sneaked into the theater without a ticket. The staff member complains incessantly. This is the third time this month. However, the projectionist takes pity on Marty, a child from a poor family, and even his daughter Ronnie helps cover for him. Despite seeing the projectionist hiding behind the shelves, she lies and says he's already escaped. This small act of kindness finally allows Marty to escape. Walking on the road littered with chicken blood, the little boy feels no warmth. Only the pacifier he keeps chewing seems to bring him a little sense of security. After waving for help countless times, finally a car stops. The family who owned the car seemed very kind, eagerly asking where he lived. Marty gave an evasive answer, saying he could go anywhere as long as he left Derry. The woman smiled. They were heading to a big city outside the town. Marty thought he'd met some good people, and a strange warmth welled up inside him. The radio was broadcasting news. The recent underground nuclear tests by the authorities had caused radiation levels in this border town to spike, potentially causing genetic mutations in the residents. Marty sensed the increasingly eerie atmosphere in the car. The family's youngest son repeatedly spelled words, while the eldest daughter took out a box of sticky stuff, tasted it herself, and offered it to Marty, while the two adults seemed unfazed by his behavior. Then Marty realized the car hadn't left Derry. He angrily shouted that he wanted to get out, but the family ignored him, continuing to spell out words for leaving. In a fit of anger, Marty tried to jerk the steering wheel, but his arm accidentally hit the woman's stomach. He then realized she was pregnant. Hearing the woman's screams, the others on the bus became even more excited. Encouraged by the crowd, the woman gave birth right there in the bus. Hearing the baby's strange cries, Marty couldn't help but peer out. Suddenly, a dark shadow flew by, and the boy trembled with fear. No one expected the woman to give birth to a monster. Marty cowered in his seat, his hands covering his head. With the sound of shattering glass, his pacifier flew out the window. 4 months later, Marty's school remained unmoved by his disappearance. Only a few of his friends still wondered where he had gone, including the militant Phil Teddy brothers and the somewhat unpopular Lily. Meanwhile, at an Air Force base not far from town, two spirited pilots disembarked from a plane. Due to Russia's recent frequent nuclear tests, the U.S. military had begun deploying additional personnel to this northernmost Air Force base. In the event of war, they could reach Soviet airspace within 7 hours. Lieutenant Russo noticed a corner of the base fenced off with barbed wire. The receptionist explained it was a special project under secret development. Pilot Hanlong didn't ask further, instead emphasizing that he didn't plan to live at the base. He had rented a house in Derry and would bring his family to live with them later. As they talked, the car drove into the aircraft maintenance workshop, which served as the pilot's logistical support station. Hanlong greeted them warmly, but the tall man among them looked inexplicably displeased. General Xiao, the base's highest commander, coldly reprimanded him. After the unusual welcome ceremony, General Xiao invited Hanlong to his office the next afternoon, saying he needed to discuss something extremely important. Meanwhile, the Phil Teddy brothers had returned home from school. The older brother was secretly watching the young woman across the street, while the younger brother worried about his friend Marty's safety. 4 whole months had passed and Marty was nowhere to be found. The older brother suspected he had run away from home, a statement that infuriated the younger brother. It turned out that on Marty's birthday, the older brother had insisted on paying him to attend his birthday party. The brother retorted without backing down, "You didn't go because you forgot. He must feel he has no friends. That's why he ran away from home." Meanwhile, Lily, looking at the jewelry on her wrist, was lost in memories. She remembered that on Marty's birthday she was the only friend who came to the party. Marty secretly led Lily to the observation deck, which had been closed for many years. Standing at the top, they overlooked the beautiful town. Marty gave Lily the turtle jewelry he had finally won, and she was very grateful that he had come to her birthday party. Lily considered Marty her only friend and then revealed a secret she had kept hidden deep in her heart. That day, she and her mother went to the tobacco factory to pick up her father from get-off work. When they left, she realized she had left her toys in the office. Her father went back to get some food and was caught in an accident, getting stuck in the machine and dying instantly. Lily could never forget that bloody scene and believed she had killed her father. From then on, she became very withdrawn and couldn't make many friends at school. At that moment, fireworks rose in the night sky. It was New Year's Eve. Marty, sensing the right atmosphere, couldn't resist moving closer. Lily instinctively dodged, but this unintentional action deeply hurt Marty's fragile heart. Even after the girl's repeated apologies, he left the tower dejectedly. Looking at the turtle ornament in her hand, Lily was once again overwhelmed with guilt, believing Marty's departure was entirely her fault. Suddenly, she heard a faint singing voice. To her surprise, the sound was coming from the bathtub drainpipe. She instinctively thought it was Marty calling for help, but then she saw several fingers protruding from the drainpipe. Though they flashed by, Lily was certain she wasn't seeing things. She told her best friend about her discovery, speculating that Marty had been locked in the sewer. However, her friend didn't seem to care at all, and even warned Lily not to tell anyone at school. Lily finally couldn't hold back and blurted out her true feelings. "You only ever care about yourself. You've never considered him a true friend." Left with no other option, she turned to the Phil and Teddy brothers, who were on good terms with Marty and were the only ones who could help. However, Lily's theory was hard to believe. How could someone be locked in a sewer and still be able to stick their fingers out? Teddy, the younger brother, was much more rational. He guessed that Marty was in trouble and was calling for help from his friends, but he hadn't received any signals and couldn't verify the story. That evening, during dinner with his family, Teddy couldn't help but ask his father if anyone would be so depraved as to imprison someone in underground pipes. His father hesitated, then sternly stated that his grandfather had escaped from a concentration camp, where guards used prisoners' skin to make lampshades. He then threw away Teddy's favorite comic books, believing they were corrupting his child's mind. However, late at night, Teddy was still engrossed in his comic books when suddenly the bedside lamp went out. He casually flipped the switch, and a moment later, the lamp began to flicker. However, the lamp followed them. The pitiful screams attracted the older brother next door. Although the previous eerie sights had all disappeared, Teddy suddenly remembered something. Could it be that Maddie was sending him a distress signal? The three children reunited. Knowing no one would believe the strange events they had encountered, they decided to investigate Maddie's disappearance themselves. They immediately went to the library, and Teddy's little sister, who was unattended, also came along with her brother. They learned the whole story of Maddie's disappearance from old newspapers. Based on a clue provided by the daughter of a movie theater employee, Maddie was last seen at the Capitol Cinema. The three quickly found Ronnie, the girl from that night, but she was extremely agitated. She had already told the police countless times about the details of Maddie's disappearance and didn't want to say another word. Lily and the others could only leave disappointed. But when the older brother mentioned the singing in the sewers, Ronnie suddenly stopped them because she had also heard singing in the pipes of the Capitol Cinema. At this moment, everyone only cared about one thing. The next moment, the group rode their bikes to the Capitol Cinema because the song they heard was from a very popular stage play 4 months ago, and also the favorite of the missing boy, Marty. Ronnie planned to rescreen the movie, hoping to find the answer within. Meanwhile, at the Air Force Base, Han Long entered the general's office. His illustrious record was undeniable. He had piloted B-22 bombers on numerous top-secret missions. This time, he was transferred to Delhi Air Force Base to test the latest generation of bombers. If necessary, he would also have to infiltrate enemy territory to carry out orders from his superiors. Han Long nodded, clearly prepared, expressing his honor to serve his country. That night, he returned to his rented apartment in the small town. After turning off the lights, he went to close the window, but didn't notice the strange reflection in the glass. As Han Long wearily closed his eyes, 2 men in protective suits suddenly appeared. They knew about Han Long's new mission and pulled out pistols, forcing him to reveal all the data on the newly developed bomber's achievements. Han Long, a tough guy, refused to divulge any information, even at the cost of his life. Just as the two sides were locked in a standoff, the adjutant living next door suddenly burst in. The robbers, not wanting to escalate the situation, seized the opportunity and slunk out of the room. A shadow fell over Han Long's heart. It seemed this mission was not as simple as he had imagined. Meanwhile, Lily and her friends were watching a stage play in the movie theater. When the song played, everyone was astonished to find the missing Marty standing at the very front of the crowd. Even more bizarrely, she seemed to have heard their calls. Then, in the next instant, Marty's expression became incredibly eerie. She clapped her hands, and the freak in her arms flew off the screen, its size noticeably larger than at birth. Lily and the others turned and ran in terror, but they were no match for the freak's speed. When Ronnie hurriedly ran out of the theater, only Lily remained alive in the lobby, covered in blood, and clutching a severed arm. This concludes the first episode of It. Judging from this episode's performance, it perfectly continued the equipment and horror atmosphere of the movie version. However, the main characters lost a large portion of them at the beginning, so it's uncertain whether it can maintain this high-octane pace. The series airs 1 episode per week, featuring the classic setup of a retro town, supernatural forces, and a child protagonist. Will it surpass the once popular Stranger Things? Feel free to leave your comments below. See you next time.